The second movement of Eleanor Hart. Good luck. The host's voice carried just enough sarcasm to draw a smirk from the backstage crew as the elderly woman approached the stage. Steady but slow. Guided by the bright lights and the soft murmur of an audience not quite sure what to expect. They didn't know her. Not really. To them, she was just a gimmick-a sweet old woman in a cardigan. Someone whose piano performance would either be adorably mediocre or an awkward misfire. But Eleanor Hart had other plans. In her small, sun-filled apartment on the third floor of an aging brick building in St. Louis, Eleanor carefully arranged her cherished photo frames above the mantel. At 78, her hands still moved with the quiet grace of someone who had never rushed life. Only studied it. Her fingers, knotted slightly now with arthritis, still bore the memory of music. In the corner sat her upright piano, polished daily, slightly out of tune on the top octave, but fiercely loved. Every morning, without fail, she played. Always. Morning, my dear, she whispered to the instrument, brushing her fingertips across its ivory keys. It had been her closest friend since she was 5. At 18, Eleanor had been a local sensation. Critics called her a prodigy with the expression of a poet. She could bring tears with Chopin and command rooms with Rachmaninoff. Her music teacher had once whispered, with trembling pride, "You're going to go all the way, child. Juilliard will beg for you." But life does not always harmonize with dreams. Her parents couldn't afford the tuition. There were no scholarships that year. Her mother fell ill. Her father worked double shifts. Eleanor took a job at the downtown department store to help with bills. Then another job waiting tables at night. Next year, she told herself. Then it was maybe next fall. Years melted into decades. The world changed. Her mother passed. Her father, too. She married a kind man named Harold who adored her music but left the world too early from lung cancer. They never had children. Still, she played. Always. Retirement gave her time. But also silence. She filled it by volunteering at the local community center, giving free lessons to children who couldn't afford them. To the kids, she was Miss Ellie, the sweet lady with the silver bun who told stories about music like it was magic. "Miss Ellie, why aren't you famous?" one girl asked with innocent eyes. Eleanor only smiled. "Sometimes the road we walk isn't the one we planned, sweetheart, but it's still a road worth traveling." What she didn't say, what she never said, was that not a single day passed without her wondering, even just a little, what could have been. Fate has a curious sense of timing. Miles away, across the city, Cameron Price was wrapping up another production meeting. At 42, he was the executive producer of American Virtuoso, a talent show that hadn't quite found its footing but had a loyal viewer base. It wasn't the ratings that bothered Cameron. It was the sameness. Every week, dance troupes, amateur singers, acrobats, ventriloquists. He wanted something different, something that would make people stop mid-scroll and watch. "We need a wild card," he said aloud, staring at the bland contestant list. His assistant, Joy Patel, shrugged. "Unless a grandma playing Mozart walks in. I don't see a surprise act in this pile." Cameron's eyes lit up. "Wait." He fished into his coat pocket, pulled out a crumpled flyer for a community fundraiser he'd accidentally attended last week while picking up his nephew. A woman had been playing piano in one of the classrooms. He remembered the posture, the stillness, the effortless beauty of her tone. Simple melodies. Yes, but something about the way she moved. It had stayed with him. "Joy, find this woman," he said, handing her the flyer. "I want her on the show." Eleanor was closing her piano when Joy arrived at the community center the next afternoon. "Miss Hart?" the young woman asked, holding a tablet. "We'd love to invite you to perform on American Virtuoso. It's just 5 minutes. We're doing a feature on musicians who've kept music alive in their hearts despite the odds." Eleanor blinked, unsure whether to laugh or recoil. "I'm hardly television material." "That's exactly why you're perfect," Joy said brightly. Our audience loves stories like yours. You'd inspire people. Eleanor's heart fluttered. The very idea of it made her stomach twist. Cameras? Stage lights? It had been so long. And yet, how much would it pay? She asked gently. Already embarrassed, Joy named a figure. Eleanor nearly dropped her music binder. 2 months pension. Just to play a song? Her piano needed serious repairs. The sticking G above middle C. The worn pedal. That old bench with the crack in the leg. If I accept, I choose the piece. Of course. Eleanor agreed. Quietly. A little afraid. A little thrilled. 1 week later, she arrived at the studio with her favorite cream-colored dress ironed to perfection. A young man named Theo led her through the maze of equipment and cables. She was shown to the green room empty. Save for a modest table of snacks and bottled water. It was quieter than she expected. Too quiet. Where are the others? She asked. Theo glanced at his clipboard. You're part of a special segment. Hey, solo feature. Moments later, Cameron Price walked in. His smile was dazzling. Practiced? Insincere. Miss Hart. Welcome, he said, shaking her hand. We're thrilled you're here. You represent something special to our viewers, something real. Eleanor nodded cautiously. I appreciate the invitation. Outside the room, she heard faint voices. Is the old lady ready? One asked. Laughing. She's perfect. The audience is young. The contrast will be hilarious. Another said. She has no idea. Came the last. Her throat tightened. She wasn't here because they believed in her music. She was the punchline. She could leave. She could pack up. Hail a taxi. Go home to her piano and her silence. But then again, maybe they did need a show. And she would give them one. Just not the one they expected. Eleanor requested a simple chair backstage. She sat quietly, hands folded, visualizing every passage of the piece she had chosen, lists La Campanella. Most pianists her age wouldn't attempt it. Many younger ones wouldn't either. It demanded everything: agility, precision, passion. She had practiced it for decades, always in secret. Tonight, she would set it free. When they finally called her name, the host, Bradley Cole, offered a cheeky introduction. Up next, we're slowing things down a bit. She's been playing at her local community center. Please welcome 78-year-old Eleanor Hart. The crowd clapped politely. She could feel their collective anticipation for something quaint. Bradley met her halfway with a condescending grin. Nervous? Miss Eleanor? He teased. Not anymore. She replied coolly. He laughed. And what will you play for us tonight? Chopsticks? Maybe Twinkle Twinkle? She smiled. Liszt. La Campanella. The audience chuckled. Some snorted. Bradley's eyebrows rose. Ooh. Fancy. Is that like Italian for hot cross buns? More laughter. She said nothing. Just walked to the piano. Adjusted the bench. And laid her fingers gently on the keys. Then she played. And the room changed. The first notes chimed like crystal bells. Clean and soft. Perfectly placed. She built from them slowly, drawing the audience into her world before unleashing the full force of the composition. Her hands danced. Flew. Leapt across the keys, nailing the infamous jumps with stunning accuracy. A gasp escaped from the back row. Phones lowered. Whispers stopped. In the control room, the audio technician turned up the master gain slightly just to capture the clarity of her phrasing. Backstage, Cameron stood frozen. Did you know she could do this? He asked Joy. No. She whispered. But I'm glad I do now. As the music grew more intense, Eleanor's expression shifted from calm to rapture. Her face glowed with joy. Her shoulders moved with grace. The piano, newly tuned and pristine, obeyed her every command. At the final thunderous run ascending octaves that burst like fireworks, the entire auditorium leapt to its feet. A full standing ovation. Not for nostalgia, not for pity, but for greatness. Eleanor bowed once, quietly, hands folded, her back straight. her heart calm. She had arrived. Bradley was speechless, truly speechless, when he found his words. They were uncharacteristically humble. "Miss Hart, that was there's no joke here. That was magnificent." A judge, herself a former concert pianist, leaned into her microphone. "Miss Hart, your performance tonight was not only technically flawless, it was emotionally transcendent. I'd like to connect you with the Symphony Conservatory. There's a faculty seat with your name on it." Later, as Eleanor gathered her things, a little girl in a blue dress approached, teary-eyed. "They say I'll never be good enough to be a pianist," she whispered. "But I saw you, and now I think, maybe I will be." Eleanor smiled and said gently, "You will, but not because of them, because of you." That night, alone in her apartment, she sat once more at her upright piano. The G above middle C still stuck a little, but when she pressed the keys, the music that came out was not of regret or nostalgia. It was hope, and it was only the second movement of a life that was, at last, playing in full.